morning and welcome to Rising. Thanks so much for watching. It is, what day is today?
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday morning.
Midweek.
How about that?
And we made it halfway through. How you doing?
Halfway through this just joy fest. How nice.
Day 2 officially of me being here. I can see that smile. It's genuine.
Oh, you are such a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, excited about the new job, and I'm excited to see you excited about it.
Okay, well, let's tell us before you burst my bubble, what's on your radar?
I think we might find some room for common agreement today, but we'll find out.
Okay.
My radar is about the situation in D.C. with the police. National Democratic politicians and mainstream media commentators have spent the last 24 years blasting President Donald Trump for announcing a federal takeover of Washington, D.C., police. For liberal and progressive critics of the president, this is undoubtedly yet more evidence of his authoritarian tendencies. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, for instance, condemned the president's move as a deliberate distraction from his incompetence and accused him of hypocrisy because his failure to deploy the National Guard 4 years ago is what contributed to January 6th. Even though former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund has repeatedly clarified that Pelosi herself was the person responsible for failing to enlist the Guard. And on CNN, Abby Phillip described Trump's takeover of the police as akin to Batman coming to save Gotham, as if that's a bad thing. Let's watch.
Let's get right to what America's talking about. Donald Trump makes himself Batman, and the nation's capital is Gotham City. The President of the United States has declared himself crime fighter in chief, and he's taking over Washington's police force.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm sold. Now, in all seriousness, there's plenty of reason to be generally suspicious of getting the feds more involved in local issues, so I understand a certain level of reflexive distrust at what Trump is doing here. I also think it's important to tell the truth and be mindful of the facts, not just people's feelings. So just because D.C. feels unsafe to some people doesn't necessarily mean that it is. We should be mindful of statistics that show that crime in the nation's capital has thankfully gone down since 2023, although let's add a little asterisk to that. We'll circle back in a minute. All that said, whether crime is technically down or technically up, it's crystal clear that Washington, D.C. has too much crime, from gangland shootings to mentally ill people attacking pedestrians to flash mobs of teenagers stealing cars, vandalizing convenience stores. All of that is happening. That's why I find it very, very interesting that at the local level, the relevant political authorities are not echoing the comments by national Democrats and the media. Consider, for instance, the stance of Muriel Bowser, D.C.'s incumbent mayor. Bowser issued a face-saving statement that the federal takeover was, quote, unprecedented and unsettling. But she did not vow to fight it. She did not vow to oppose it. She did not vow to try to counter Trump on it. And in fact, she seems to be sending positive vibes to Trump that she wants to work with him rather than against him on this. That's because she knows city residents are tremendously frustrated with what's happening in the district. And more police could make a difference. Moreover, D.C.'s police union straightforwardly supports Trump on this. They're backing him. Though the union thinks full staffing of the local police department is more important as a long-term solution. And they're right. Now, indeed, the things that would really go a long way towards solving the crime problem in D.C. had to do with budgeting, staffing, and government competence. The major problem, the single biggest problem impacting the justice system in D.C. was the lack of a working crime lab for years. D.C.'s forensics lab was de-accredited due to various problems several years back. While it's now up and running again, it has no means of processing ballistic evidence. That significantly hampers the ability of prosecutors to charge criminals effectively. As a result, D.C. has a very low prosecution rate, very low conviction rate for serious crime. Maybe Judge Jeanine Pirro can fix that. Now, we need more resources for homicide detectives, prosecutors, and we also need the backlog of Superior Court judges to be addressed. If you don't have the system working to investigate, to prosecute, and to convict criminals, well, you'll have more crime. It's that simple. Now let's return to that asterisk. Now, it may not be the case that D.C.'s crime statistics are even accurate. I'll let former Representative Peter Meijer make the case.
I think Mayor Bowser may also know that there's an ongoing investigation in her police department over the potentially manipulation of those statistics, that there have been a downclassing of some of the crimes, there's been a massaging of the numbers and the reporting in order to fit them more beneficially into the FBI crime stats. So she may know some things that national Democrats are not paying attention to.
Food for thought. And I, of course, also want to congratulate former Representative Peter Meyer on his awesome flowing
locks.
Love the hairdo.
What about me? You didn't say.
You look lovely as always, Lindsey.
You know what is so interesting? I've been watching Muriel Bowser and wondering about her disposition, because it's very much like saying enough to say that this is not what she would have preferred, but also respectful, which is something that I think that it stands to do the country well, right?
Yeah.
She actually is having a dialogue with President Trump, and I think being the adult in the room. So if President Trump would have had a dialogue with her prior to making national announcements, that could have been a strategy, because I don't think that there's an issue with keeping the streets of D.C. more safe. I think the issue is that D.C. is not the number one crime issue in America, and so hyper-focusing on it makes it hyper-political. I also understand that D.C. has no statehood, so it's a totally different example when Trump is coming in here and bringing in federal authorities, but when he's threatening to do it in New York or California or other cities like Baltimore, that's when it becomes concerning, because he's overstepping what should be done in a federal capacity, even by standards that Republicans hold states to and want them to govern themselves. And I
hear half the territory is federally controlled.
Understood. So, but I also think it's a bit of micromanaging. You know, I think that people could handle crime in D.C. based off of the fact that it has come down from its highest point. That doesn't mean there isn't room to do better.
It just maybe means, if you believe those statistics,
but you don't have
to. We're manipulated.
The biggest thing, I think, is when Trump does this press conference and says he wants to give police authority to do whatever they want. I think for me that's concerning, because it's going to raise a slew of constitutional issues. I also know that you and I agree on stop and frisk and that being a poor policy. And I understand that when national or local police are in the officer and given the in the position of power and given the authority to kind of look through anyone, stop crime in any way, that was largely unsuccessful in New York. And so when we come here and think about how the communities will be affected and we're piling everyone together, homeless people, people of color, young people, Black people are 5 times more, according to the NAACP, more likely to be stopped by the police than white people. And so when we have these issues coming up and Trump is just pointing out young kids, we know what these coded messages mean. And so that's my biggest...
5 times more likely to be involved in the city of D.C. because they're more likely to be involved in criminal activity.
Yeah, but also
there's a disproportionate.
But the people that are not, are constantly being berated like they were with stop and frisk, right. And that door has already been opened. We've seen how this works. So without some strategy and programs to maybe get youth off the street, right? The incidents you're talking about in your neighborhood are young people are running around late at night. Right. Okay, so what about actually rectifying some of these things? What about finding things or activities for young kids that don't have things to do to be occupied? What about trying to find rehabilitation programs for homeless people that are on drugs?
Sure, I support all that.
I want to hear solutions.
All those things were shut down as a result of COVID governance, and that was a huge mistake, because the crime problem we have now is a direct result of closing down after-school programs, community programs for at-risk youth. We now see the problems with that. So I agree with you, but I think having more police on the streets will deter the teenage criminal activity, because they're hanging out with their friends, getting into a little bit of trouble, drinking a little bit, doing some drugs, and then they're like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we carjack someone, or wouldn't it be funny rob CVS? If there's a police officer, there's a police car parked outside the CVS or on the block, they're not going to do that. This is not thought out. This is opportunistic, and that's where I think a stronger police presence for the next 30 days to the end of the summer will actually deter some crime, and then we can get things under control, and then do the long-lasting stuff, because this isn't a permanent solution. We need to staff the actual police, which is what Mayor Bowser and the police union has said, and we need to get this ballistics running at the crime lab, for goodness sake. That's the main one.
The main issue for me, and I know we have to go, is that you're just scattering people. You're scattering the homeless people. You might be scattering people who could be potentially criminals. Yeah, they might get out of D.C. for 30 days, but then they'll go to Virginia and Maryland. So what are we talking about? You're not actually getting them out of town. You're not providing solutions for, long-term effectiveness. And so that's my biggest issue with this entire bombardment of D.C.
Well, the homeless issue is hard, because it's hard to get people to take antipsychotic medication who are in a very difficult mental health or drug place.
Yep, so President Trump is nominating who he wants to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Stay with us, we'll talk about it next.
A controversial pick to potentially lead the BLS, although conservatives are definitely thrilled about it. President Donald Trump has nominated the next leader of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. His name is E.J. Antoni of the Heritage Foundation. Now, during an interview this month, Antoni criticized the inaccuracy of the recent numbers released by the BLS.
This is a move that's being widely criticized by not only Democrats, but even some conservative economists. Dave Herbert is an economist at the Conservative American Institute for Economic Research. He posted on X, ripping into the new nominee and hoping the Senate blocks this nomination. And on the other side, a former top economist for the Obama administration, Jason Furman, calling Antoni, quote, completely unqualified.
If confirmed, Antoni will be replacing former President Biden's appointee, Erica McIntyre. Trump fired her earlier this month after alleging she was rigging the job's data. Antoni also called for her termination earlier this month as well. He was a guest on Rising a year or two ago, economist with the Heritage Foundation. We just read tweets from people criticizing him for some reason, but there are a lot of people who are also happy about his selection and hope that this data will be better, will not need as much revision as it has in recent months, and to get government running effectively. That's the mission.
So my biggest concern is, you know how we talk about Laura Loomer and she comments and then something happens in the administration. Who's in charge? So we know that Steve Bannon has podcast guests, and then that leads to a decision now because we know that the reason why Antoni's in this position is because someone got fired. Someone got fired based off the conversation that was happening with Steve Bannon. And, you know, I feel like who is in charge? Like, who makes these decisions? Like, they go back and forth and fire people based on conversations that are happening on podcasts. I would like to see President Trump make a firm decision and not hire somebody who is the architect of Project 2025, you know, the thing that he has nothing to do with and does not like to implement, to then move forward and work in a position that he is completely...
Project 2025 is just conservative. There's nothing nefarious or unusual about it. It is just conservative
President
ideas.
Trump looked at it and said, I need to distance myself from this. Why? And then why hire half the team?
It into a boogeyman. But it's the same ideas. There's nothing weird. It's not some secret plan. People talk about it like it's like a cult, a cursed magical device with like black smoke coming off of it. It's just the same conservative policy that conservatives have wanted to do since the Reagan era.
And it's a blueprint that Donald Trump is seemingly following step by step, and also hiring people within it.
He's a conservative, Republican president.
Well, he's not a traditional conservative in many ways. He just raised, our deficit by millions. That's not conservative.
Well, that was not
so
in
he
Project
does whatever.
2025.
I know, but he does whatever he wants, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I wish he had hewed more closely to Project 2025 when it comes to our debt and deficit. You're right.
So Antoni has a lot of credentials, right? He graduated North Illinois University. No one said that he's not smart. People are saying that his career path is almost entirely partisan. People understand that the Heritage Foundation is partisan. People see him talk often and kind of just praise Trump all day on Newsmax and Fox. And this role is specifically supposed to be apolitical. This is somebody who's in a role to kind of balance things like our Federal Reserve interest data, like Social Security, which then leads into the cost of living for 70+ million people.
So I think that believe that the role is nonpartisan.
It's not a belief thing. This is, you know, I like to go by Robby numbers, and a lot of times this week we've been talking about beliefs. You believe DC is unsafe. You believe. I'm telling you that this role is supposed to be nonpartisan. It was created to be nonpartisan. Similarly to the Supreme Court, whether you believe it is. You don't want to lose faith in all our institutions. These are why
I've
they were
already
created.
lost faith in our institutions.
Okay, so we should just throw the whole government away then. That's not a good solution.
What the Trump administration is doing is getting rid of certain aspects of the government and then replacing in the government people with people they think are more effective.
Or blindly faithful to Trump, which I don't think is always a good idea.
They're going to implement his policy agenda. He won the election, and so there's no longer going to be this permanent class of government bureaucrats who act independently of the political will of the people actually elected to government. We had this crazy idea that when you win an election, the Electoral College and the popular vote, you then get to make government run the way you want. And if people don't agree with the way you're running it, then they vote you out of office in 4 years. What liberals seem to imagine is, well, there'll be a tiny aspect of government that is elected every 4 years, but most of it is functioning the way it continues to function, non-ideologically and non-partisan and impartial. No, those people have their own ideological views. They have a pro-government, grow-government, progressive outlook. And you're right, they have continued to operate regardless of which party is in power. Conservatives, Trump movement people are finally saying enough of that. We have won now, and now the whole government will reflect our policies and priorities, or we'll get rid of it.
Yeah, but like getting things like getting rid of a jobs report or getting rid of reports that give us information to see how far we've come, most of the reports that are coming out are not really pleasant when it comes to Donald Trump and the feelings, since we're talking about those of Americans. Like, he doesn't want any negative information about him. That's more like cowering to President Trump as opposed to
massive revisions to the numbers.
No, show me proof of that. If there's allegations, it's one thing. I want to see.
Well, that's not a. That's subjective. The numbers have had to be, they come up with numbers, and then a couple months later they'd revise the numbers and say, actually, there were far fewer or far more jobs created than we thought. I mean, this was a problem actually for Kamala. And Trump, again, it's not that I never criticize him. Trump was wrong when he said that they cooked the books in some way to make things look better for Biden and Kamala. That's not what they did. They actually made it look much worse for them than it was. So that was a revision that hurt Kamala and Biden. But again, I'm just speaking to basic competence of people in government.
Okay, competence. And we're talking about a lot of people that President Trump has hired that have been there, not to say this is not a skill to have, they've been like television hosts. That doesn't make you competent in the roles that President Trump is hiring. And so this guy is very smart man.
What role qualifies you better than television host?
So like this man is smart, but he has no experience in market statistics or macroeconomic agencies. These are all things that, specifically as I'm trying to understand the role and what you need to understand, it's more than what his role has ever done. So when you put somebody in these big positions, once again, it's like Trump misunderstanding what is required for attempted to be a political position that combs through numbers like this. I mean, he can learn on the job.
So I don't know.
Well, I read his
expert economist at the Heritage Foundation. I presume he's qualified for the job.
Well, a lot of people disagree, and even conservative people have said, quote, he either has shown a complete understanding of economic data or a willingness to mislead.
Even Republicans
we read in and talked about it.
And then we find someone who hasn't been a Republican for 20 years and is like a talking head on MSNBC.
People count as a Republican even if they don't like things that are going on. Just like you said, you can criticize President Trump and you can criticize Republicans, just like I can criticize Joe Biden. I can criticize anybody and still feel how I feel about certain policies and people.
If you're a
you can say somebody is the wrong
Trump,
choice.
You're a representative of the smallest, tiniest sliver of the population. It basically doesn't exist. It only exists on the op-ed pages of elite newspapers and in the punditry jobs for television.
Why do you have to hate Donald Trump? That's so extreme. Rather than saying, I disagree with your new hire. This doesn't make sense for the country. We would like to get to a space where we're not being bureaucratic and loyalist. And so why don't we just hire somebody that actually can comb through the numbers? Since you think everybody's a fraud anyway, every time a poll comes out that's not in your favor, you condemn it. So why don't we just hire somebody that's actually neutral as possible that we can find? Not somebody from the Heritage Foundation, which is so extremely non-neutral and partisan that it would be ridiculous to think anything that comes out of his mouth moving forward is going to be anything besides favorable to Trump.
If they had picked someone from a liberal
No, I didn't say liberal. Everything I said was neutral.
Right, because the liberals always say we're nonpartisan. Oh, yeah.
They could have picked somebody from NPR since a lot of people are going to have jobs.
And that would be nonpartisan?
Yes.
Why is Elon Musk threatening to sue Apple? We'll tell you next.
So another public feud between Elon Musk and Sam Altman has erupted. Tesla CEO Elon Musk said his artificial intelligence startup, xAI, will sue Apple for allegedly favoring other AI competitors.
In a series of posts on X on Monday, Musk writes, "Hey Apple, App Store, why do you refuse to put either X or Grok in your must-have section when it's the #1 news app in the world and Grok is #5 among all apps? Are you playing politics? What gives?" Several hours later, Musk escalated the dispute, adding Apple is behaving in a manner that makes it impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach #1 in the App Store, which is an unequivocal antitrust violation. xAI will take immediate legal action.
So after Musk's post, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman hits back on X, writing, quote, "This is a remarkable claim given what I've heard alleged that Elon does to manipulate X to benefit himself and his own companies and harm competitors and people he doesn't like."
Grok xAI's AI model is currently ranked 6th in the App Store's top free apps section for iPhones in the United States, while ChatGPT is on the top of the list.
Now, in June 2024, Apple partnered with OpenAI to integrate ChatGPT services into its devices.
So this is interesting. Elon Musk, and Sam Altman have a long-running feud.
Which I got into in the weeds. I didn't really realize the connection.
Hate each other.
Yeah, I got into that yesterday.
Well, I don't know, Elon Musk hates Sam Altman, and Sam Altman kind of tries to do a, I don't think about you at all sort of thing.
I love that energy.
They had a dispute over various companies they were involved in. Look, I love Elon. I actually I love both of them. I think they're both great businessmen. I think they're both, once in a century technological innovators who are doing great things for the human race. I wish they'd get along better, but actually some friendly rivalry is perfectly fine, like a Tesla versus Edison kind of, race to who can develop the best product. Elon should not be, so what he's alleging, I disagree with him. Apple has no obligation to prioritize Grok or to even be on a level playing field with Grok. Apple's App Store belongs to Apple, so it's their company and they can do whatever they want. Similarly, Grok belongs to Elon, and Elon can tweak it in whatever way he wants, and he can favor his own tweets on the site that he owns because it's his site. He bought it. So I would say to both of them, this is a little bit of pot calling the kettle black that they're both engaged in. Yes, they're both tweaking their product to favor itself, which they are perfectly welcome to do because it's their company and their product and they can do that. Which nobody likes to hear. Everyone's like, oh, it's got to be perfectly fair competition at all time. Well, it's their thing. If the marketplace is owned by them, they can just do it the way they want. So there's no antitrust argument you can make here.
And I like when things are just the best. Grok is not. I've used that thing. Okay, it's literally
Grok's pretty good.
It's fine, but it spews out. It got suspended from its own app because it's just saying information recently that actually was.
I actually saw it alleged that it was suspended for calling what's happening in Gaza a genocide.
Yeah, same thing Marjorie Taylor Greene can say on X, but Grok can't explain that based on data from international humanitarian organizations. So that's the thing. It's like Grok is answering a question that was asked. Also, Grok has spewed out, I believe, some affinity to Nazi things. I don't know. I've read it. So the app needs fixing. Yeah.
Well, they fixed that.
Okay, I'm just saying. So you want it to be number one? ChatGPT.
Ask Super Grok. I ask Super Grok
not
questions.
Super Grok. It elevated to the next level.
Well, that's Super Grok, and you can ask it questions, and it gives you pretty good summaries of issues.
The funniest thing about this is on Elon's tweet, the one that was accusing antitrust and all this stuff, there was a community note, because y'all love community notes,
I do love community
that
notes.
said DeepSeek, which is another AI app, actually ranked number one on Apple's App Store in recent weeks. And so it's not only ChatGPT. And so that's, again, like somebody who's just being a little bit of a whining baby. Elon Musk is used to getting a yes and getting what he wants, which is totally fair. As a business person, you should do whatever you want. But I just think, he needs to mind his manners. You can't always be number one. You have to make the best product and then worry about
But I appreciate
getting the
Elon's
best.
drive to be number one. And that's a drive Sam Altman has, too. And they're competing to deliver the best artificial intelligence and make our lives better, and I think that's great.
And apparently AI is, they say, even bigger. You know how the internet took over? It's even bigger than that. They say well, you're part of it. But they said that the money that's going to come from this, when people fully understand it, is unfathomable right now. So I understand why they're both a little upset.
I can't wait to be replaced. It'll be little computer digital versions of us.
No, I didn't give away my likeness.
Have a nice day, Lindsay. Good morning. It is Rising.
Okay, Democrats finally showing some fire, but when will it help with the midterms, or will it at all? So I'll talk about that next in my lens. Coming up, stick around.
Lindsay, what is in your lens today?
Lots to talk about. So most people are soaking up the last days of summer. Barbecues, beach trips, a little bit of out-of-office energy. But Democrats, nope, they're in the mood for lawn chairs and lemonade. They're finally lacing up their gloves. Take California Governor Gavin Newsom, who decided to fight fire with fire this week. He took to X and trolled President Trump in a post that looked like it could have come straight from Trump's own Truth social feed. I mean, caps lock and all, warning Texas about redistricting while mocking Trump's style. It said, quote, Donald Trump, the lowest polling president in recent history. All caps. This is your second to last warning. The next one is the last one. Stand down now or California will counter-strike legally to destroy your illegal crooked maps in red states. And then there's former Texas Representative Beto O'Rourke, who put it, well, a little less delicately. Take a look.
We're throwing our hands up and we're asking the crowd, the people of America, hey, do you see what's going on here? This is unfair. This isn't the rules that we agreed to play by. Well, who cares about the rules right now? Punch back, kick back, dunk over their heads.
So yeah, Democrats are starting to fight back, and a lot of people are saying, finally. Don't just take my word for it. A recent Associated Press poll found that 15% of Democrats described their leaders as, quote, weak or apathetic. After years of warning that Trump was, quote, assaulting democracy, some Democrats have decided that the warning labels aren't enough. It's actually time for some action. Axios reports Senate Democrats held over 100 events in the first week of summer recess. Town halls, hospital visits, small business roundtables, food bank tours, all aimed at hammering Republican policies before the 2026 midterms. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wants to localize the impact of what Trump and the GOP Congress are pushing: cuts to health care, tariffs, rising energy costs, and tax breaks for the wealthy. It's exactly the kind of retail politics that voters have been begging for: less DC bubble, more Main Street reality. Meanwhile, Republicans have been steering clear of town halls completely. Earlier this year, Representative Richard Hudson, who runs the GOP House campaign arm, advised members to skip them entirely. Maybe that's because when they do show up, the reception isn't exactly warm. Just ask Nebraska Congressman Mike Flood, who got heckled last week when he tried to tout the big, beautiful bill.
Next slide, please. These are the other important parts of the one big, beautiful bill. Next slide, please. No taxes on overtime.
Now, a Wall Street Journal poll shows 52% of Americans oppose that bill, a warning sign for Republicans heading into the midterms. So here's the bottom line. If Democrats keep showing backbone, meeting voters exactly where they are, and making the case that Trump's policies hurt everyday Americans, they might actually turn 2026 into a comeback season. And if they don't, well, they'll be back on the sidelines wondering why the refs left the game in the first place.
I find their resistance futile. Limp-wristed.
The
What are you
100.
doing?
Okay, no, not from the person that says, "Oh, Democrats needed to get to the everyday person, get out there. They lost touch. They are the class of the elite." They had 100 events, and we cannot find Republican Congresspeople out in their communities, especially not find them talking about the big beautiful bill, because they
To
know,
be confronted
as
by
Senator Josh,
astroturfed, Soros paid for
confront by
activist
yourself.
people.
Senator Josh Hawley specifically said, a Republican senator, this is devastation to Medicaid. He doesn't think that this is a great thing to do as we cut people's access to health insurance.
He's
It's
a
going to affect.
rhino.
No, now this is the thing. If you disagree with President Trump, you're a rhino. That is not going to work anymore.
but Josh
Conservatives
Hawley's-
are allowed to have. He's hardly a rhino, I would say.
He's a big government liberal, progressive.
That is
That's what I
so.
don't like about
No,
him.
that's literally you guys shoot anybody to the side with a difference of opinion. I think it's fair to have fiscal conservatives who also criticize this bill. Are they all rhinos?
No,
they are
they're
the most
not,
traditional
but Josh
parts.
Hawley is.
Fine, every fiscal conservative. Let's talk about them who criticize this bill. Also, is a traditional conservative. So maybe Trump would be the rhino in this case.
You're right.
Because
The bill
he
is
added so
terrible,
much to the
and they
deficit.
shouldn't have voted for it.
All right, so
I
then
don't like the bill.
This is the biggest piece of legislation, pretty much arguably coming out of Trump's administration in the first 7 months. And so you have to go into your community and talk about it. You guys voted for it. You're Congress. You make the rules. You literally make the rules. So the fact that they can't face the fire and they're worried about a little bit of heckling and have been advised to avoid human beings that put you in office because somebody might boo you is wild. I actually think it's honorable for any Republican that's going out right now and actually explaining why they appreciated this bill into the midterms. And I think it's cowardly to not say anything and just sit back and pretend like the bill didn't happen when it's going to affect people for, the next decade?
Yeah, you were giving advice to Democrats. My advice to Republicans is when you promise to get the debt under control, not raise taxes, reduce regulation, not vote for monstrosities that are going to just expand our entitlement state, when you promise to do that, then you have to follow through when you're given the opportunity. So it's too late for them. They chose a different path, most of them.
But I also want to know what do Republicans expect to happen in the midterms? Because Democrats obviously were crushed last year based on what happened in the election and Kamala's lost. And they're obviously
Look at the polls. They
refocusing.
expect to hold on.
Well, but on what basis, though? That's what I'm saying. They're not,
Polls.
okay, you don't listen to polls. Neither does Trump.
No, I listen. What do you mean by that? I listen to
Okay,
polls.
President Trump doesn't listen to polls. So if
I
we're
listen
gonna
to
keep
polls
that
and then I
consistently-
add a +3 for Republicans because the polls underrate Republican chances by between 1 to 7 points. So
Okay, let's say you do listen to polls.
Yeah.
The point is, I don't care about this early in the game what polls are saying. What are people saying? That's what I'm saying. When you go in communities, people are uncomfortable with a lot of what the bill is going to do. And so what are you running on? This would be the big legislation that you campaign on, and they can't even do that. So remember how Biden remember how Biden lost? It was because, oh, I'm not Trump, so I'm a better option because I'm not Trump. And that's how he won the first time. Can't do that again. So what are they going to go into the midterms? What's the message then? Because there's always a call for what the Democratic message is. I don't know what the Republican message is. Besides, Trump said he was going to do a lot of stuff, hasn't really accomplished it, but we're pushing forward.
I disagree. I know what the Republican message is. I don't know what the Democratic message is. The Republican message is we are making our country great again. We're making it economically prosperous. We're confronting unfair trade deals the world over. We're negotiating with them to have a great economy. We are trying to be America first in our diplomacy, but we're negotiating with other countries to stop foreign conflicts to the best we can.
President Trump got in, what, an 11-day war recently that nobody wanted to do?
Well, it was the only war that's ever been over in 11 days.
It shouldn't be appropriate. It shouldn't be appropriate. He's not putting America first by jumping into Israel's conflict.
With anyone else, we'd have boots on the ground there by now, and we got out of it. He negotiated a historic, should be Nobel Peace Prize winning.
You said that twice now. I want you to stop saying that.
Armenia and
I want you to stop saying that.
Nobel Peace Prize for Trump.
I want you to stop saying that.
They agree. They asked them at the press conference, the Azerbaijani gentleman and the Armenian gentleman, Peace Prize for Trump, and now he's going to try to do that with Russia and Ukraine as well. I wish him all the best luck in the world at that.
Especially as he leaves Zelensky largely out of that conversation.
Violent criminals, and that's what Republicans are doing. Democrats are just, I hate Trump.
No, I think that they're stepping up, having a little backbone. They're leaving Texas and telling you, no, you're not going to bulldoze over people of color in the states that have grown 95%.
The Beto O'Rourke strategy is the right one.
That's the first step. They have a while to. So you know what happens when you lose? You know what happens when you lose? You have to pick yourself back up and re-strategize, correct? Yeah. That's what they're doing. Republicans literally won, and they have done nothing effective that's making people feel like they have more money in their pockets, which was the number one day one promise that the businessman that I am, President Trump, is going to make this economy better. And I just saw a Wall Street Journal poll this week that said people actually are blaming Trump for how bad the economy feels right now.
Stock market is killing it.
I told you about the stock market. We talked about it yesterday. The average American does not care what the stock market is doing. The average American wants to buy groceries and wants to pay down credit card debt, and they are not able to do that. And so President Trump is not making it easier.
The stock market doing well benefits everyone in the economy, so it's a good thing.
But nobody wants to hear that right now. How are you benefiting the everyday person? Because all I see is President Trump criticizing people like Mamdani that actually provided some type of plan to try to make things easier day to day. No, he provided some kind of plan.
I will say this about socialism.
I want to hear President Trump's plan to make day to day easier and more affordable. That's what I'm waiting for.
Okay.
Speaking of Zohran Mamdani returning fire, he's linking his opponent Andrew Cuomo to Jeffrey Epstein. The Democratic candidate's latest attack and ad. Stay with us.
Democratic candidate for New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani is taking the mudslinging to a new level with an attack ad on rival Andrew Cuomo, linking him to, of all people, Jeffrey Epstein.
Bringing it back up. The 90-second ad focuses on Cuomo's consulting firm, Innovation Strategies, LLC, noting that among his clients was Andrew Farkas, a previous associate of Jeffrey Epstein. Let's take a look.
In June, the New York Times uncovered that Cuomo had worked with his longtime friend Andrew Farkas on a luxury marina project in Puerto Rico. Farkas' previous partner on luxury marinas in the Caribbean? Jeffrey Epstein. That's the thing about Andrew Cuomo. Once you think you found out about all of his scandals, you find out about another. And then another, and then probably another. But if my friend, the disgraced former governor of the state of New York, feels that's unfair, Habibi, release your client list.
So far, Cuomo hasn't directly responded to the ad. This all comes just days after Cuomo slammed Mamdani for his rent-stabilized apartment in Astoria, Queens, despite his family's apparent wealth.
Cuomo keeps doubling down on his line of attack, posting this to X. As you continue your Rentgate distraction tour, today I am calling on you, Zohran Mamdani, to release the lease. Cuomo continues, from your own comments about it, family support is nearly certain. Your parents guaranteed your obviously rent-stabilized lease. Why are you hiding it? The people of New York City have a right to know and a dream for affordable housing that helps the working class. Release the lease. Cuomo proposed Zohran's law, which would prevent wealthy residents from renting rent-restricted apartments in the city.
But it hasn't appeared to have an effect on the polls at all. A new Siena College poll released this week shows Mamdani and Cuomo as the two frontrunners. Both the polls showed Mamdani leading him by a whopping 19 points, with 44% of New York voters polled favoring Mamdani and just 25% favoring Cuomo. That's a new wider margin than the Democratic primary, even when Mamdani handily beat Cuomo just fewer than 13 points.
Both of these lines of attack are kind of stupid, are they not?
Well, I think if,
I don't.
I love Michelle Obama and going high.
Who knew Jeffrey
But
Epstein?
I like it. You're playing games with me when I made $47,000 a year and bought an apartment that was within my reach, and you know that New York is very expensive.
When we talked about that yesterday, I said that was silly.
Right, and his parents, if they're rich, that still doesn't mean a grown man is living off his parents. So I don't even know what this conversation is about. But also, if Cuomo wants to try to go there, Mamdani's like, okay, I'll meet you here. I was talking about policies, and everybody was criticizing me for policies, which is always a good thing to me in government. But now you're trying to personally attack. So here we go. Also, it's actually, even though voters get tired of this pretty quickly, so I don't think it should go for the rest of the campaign season. Cuomo has a pattern of a lack of transparency and consistency when it comes to his scandals that have been alleged over the last few years. And so I don't think this is a time when you're already roped in with President Trump and you have a Democratic primary where people are probably going to go for the person that's furthest distance from President Trump, if you're a Democrat. Is a time to also get wrapped up in the Epstein drama, because that's when just everybody across the board, even people who were moderate that got interested in the Epstein case slower than other people that were conservative, are still going to be like, wait, hold on, you're friends with Epstein's friend, and we're doing like people still hear see one headline, unfortunately, see one ad and believe it. So that's how it goes sometimes, unfortunately.
It was kind of a funny ad. Zohran is amusing in it.
The music was good.
Music was it felt like a parody, honestly. I don't know that it's a good idea, and it matters at all, again, that he knows someone who knew Jeffrey Epstein.
But when you think about young people, you said it. What did it do? It made you laugh. The music was ridiculous. He's leaning on the curve.
I've fully conceded
charisma.
this. He has more personality than Cuomo or anyone. He has personality.
All right. So that he's leaning into that. Right.
Yeah.
He's entertaining. And so at the very least, for people that think the government perhaps is a little bit too stuffy, too clutching their pearls, specifically when it comes down to the Democratic Party, has been accused of very much, highbrowing people, if that's the right word, like kind of looking down. Okay, so this is somebody who's like, no, I'm going to just get in the mud with you real quick. And I actually don't mind it, especially because he didn't start with Cuomo. Cuomo started with him. And so he's just responding, and I think he surely has the right to do it. I was thoroughly entertained. And first thing you have to do is get people's attention. Now that Mamdani has successfully done that, now you can continue to talk about policies. But if people are not paying attention to you and you have the best policies on the globe, you're essentially never winning.
But did you see what my dear friend, he's not really a friend, I've never met him, but my North Star, Harry Enton, the pollster at CNN, favorite guy
You love it. We got to get him on because you really love him.
Fan. He had a segment on CNN the other day that Google search results for Epstein are down like 80-something%. It has Donald Trump's approval is down maybe 1%.
You're dying on the sword.
It has
over
not
this.
mattered at all, and we are moving on. So Zohran is a little. He hasn't gotten the menu yet.
How can we move on?
The memo that we're moving on.
And how can we move on when a bipartisan committee has now subpoenaed people, including some of the former presidents or President Bill Clinton of the country, to come speak in front of Congress, and you're telling me we moved on? We can't move on. As a national news cycle, we're going to continue to talk about this because now it's come to a point where both sides of the aisle have called for something, and President Trump's whole team, aside from him, has offered something that has never come to fruition. And so people are following through. And so you can't get mad at people for doing their job and trying to see what connections might have happened to lead to undercharging.
Don't tell me what I can't get mad about. I can get mad about whatever I want.
That is a ridiculous response. I can't even argue with that.
Yeah. Look, I don't think Cuomo is doing anything to change the direction of this race. Zohran Mamdani is extremely likely to be the next mayor of New York. Cuomo should not even see this through to the end. He should just drop out in disgrace, go back to being disgraced. He never stopped being disgraced. There needs to be, if they really want to defeat Mamdani, there needs to be consolidation because there's Cuomo and Adams and the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's splitting the non-Mamdani vote 3 ways. Even if they all got out, it's not a guarantee he wouldn't still win, but as it stands, it's just his race to lose. None of this is changing the fundamental underlying dynamics, which is that Cuomo is a deservedly unpopular figure. He had to resign as governor of New York due to his COVID governance and sexual misconduct allegations, not proven, but allegations. And so he should have never tried this again. And now he is, and this is the result. And it's embarrassing for him. But centrists who don't want New York to be run by a socialist, I don't want New York to be run by a socialist, needed to find a more appealing candidate or convince Cuomo not to bother with this. And because of his ego, he did. So now here we are.
I think it's just eye-opening to see how much national attention Mamdani has got for a local race, and especially when our own...
Well, a local race, but it's New York City.
But also to the point where our president, how often does our president get involved in criticism of somebody running for mayor? And so it's just interesting that President Trump is so invested in this. Like, what are people afraid of Mamdani coming? Because there's also this pretend...
Socialism. What we're afraid of is socialism.
No, there's a pretend to like laugh about this policy. Like I was on talking to a Republican strategist last night that was like, Mamdani, keep being louder and louder on News Nation, because she's like, this is a disaster. The more you keep promoting these policies, we want you to be louder and louder because you're crippling your own party. So if that's the thought, but then President Trump is responding, and then Cuomo is in cahoots allegedly with President Trump to try to figure out how to get Mamdani out of the race and have phone calls. And then if Eric Adams is President Trump's friend and also trying to get Mamdani out of the race because he did him a favor recently, I'm like, what is this obsession with Mamdani? Like, okay, if New York tries something out and very openly try something out and it fails, then they tried it. They've tried multiple mayors that haven't been ideal. You know, there's been a lot of dislike of New York mayors. So I don't think there's anything wrong with trying something new. And if people want Mamdani, the people are going to vote for Mamdani. And the more you kind of berate him from a national level, the more I think you're stoking the fire to make it happen and piquing people's interest.
I would challenge you on the idea that Mamdani's socialist policies represent something new. In fact, they are actually something very familiar, something that has been tried over and over and over and over and again, and doesn't work.
Well, I think people want some kind of answer. I think when we look at why President Trump was elected into office.
Police.
I'm not talking about that policy. I'm talking about creating more affordable housing for mothers and access to care. These are things that people like me will look to and say, oh, that's interesting. Let me read more about that policy. And so on the one hand, you have somebody who's proposing policies that you might think are pie in the sky, but are piquing the interest of people who, like I said, are worried about the economy and their families. And then on the other hand, you have people criticizing them for rent stabilization, right? So this is not a winning formula. I want to hear more policies from people in New York that barely can afford to live.
Well, next year, the White House is set to celebrate America's 250th birthday with a cage match. We'll explain after the break. Stay right there. There's going to be a fight at the White House, but it might not be what you think.
Dana White confirming the White House will host a cage match for a UFC fight. He had this to say on CBS this morning.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen. Well, think about this. When you were just asking me, at the beginning how I felt about, where we are today. July 4th, 250th birthday of the United States of America, live on CBS from the White House.
Well,
so,
listen.
Yeah.
White also says he will meet with the president to iron out the details later this month. Trump has been a big supporter of UFC fights, attending several events since the start of his second term.
Now, White's UFC also striking a $7.7 billion deal with Paramount. That deal coming just days after Skydance and Paramount's $8 billion merger closed. Interesting timing. Look, I'm proud of all the UFC has accomplished. I think it's a great sport. Since 2001, they've completely changed the game. They were largely irrelevant compared to the status that they have now, and now on their way to being an international sport. Huge deal. Listen, I'm still the grandma who's like clutching their pearls about having a cage fight at the White House. I think that is wild. And like, I don't know why that needs to happen on the lawn of the White House. I think that it's like,
it'll be one of the more dignified things to happen in our government buildings.
Yeah, like January 6th was not very dignified. You're right. And Trump pardoned all those people. So that's an exact example. No, that's all. Well, I'm going to tell you, that's exactly what's not dignified. I just think that
what I find undignified is them coming together to find out ways to take more of our money and send more of it overseas. That's what you're referring to. Yes.
But I just don't want to see this happen. I think that they can have this anywhere. They can have it in Washington, D.C. The president can attend. Like, why does it need to be on the White House?
Your pearls
I am. Why does it need to be on the White House lawn? I just feel like it's...
Put those pearls down. Why can't it be on the White House?
Because it's like having Gladiator back in the day in Rome and just having like, I don't want to see this. People are actually getting bruised and hurt. This is not a performance. We're not watching Broadway at the White House. We're watching people whoop each other and have bloody noses and really get hurt. Like, this is not even WWE. I probably would have felt better with, because that's largely acting and fake. I don't want to see people actually beating each other down at the White House. I just think that, we need to have, we've gotten rid of so much decorum, and I don't care what people think about me clutching my pearls. I'm a grandma.
Sport. This isn't beating up people without their consent.
It's a cage fight, essentially.
They fight each other.
Yeah, I know.
You sign up to
so
do
did
it.
gladiators back in the day. I just don't want. I don't.
Well, they
think that's a
killed
nice
them, and a lot of them were sentenced to do it, right? So it's different.
This is basically like dog fights at the White House.
No, well, no, it's not, because the dogs can't consent to the fighting.
Okay,
That's wrong.
So you have
I
no
am a
issue with
libertarian.
this.
I believe in the ethics of consent. If you willingly want to participate in fighting for money, you have that right to do that, and these people like doing that, and people love watching the sport, and Trump's a fan of it, and a lot of Trump people are a fan of it, and so I have absolutely no problem with it.
Okay, well, I just want to start putting a list of events I'd like to see at the White House. I want to see 50 Cent perform over there, in the White House lawn. I want to, what are you talking about? Anything goes at the White House?
Why can't 50 Cent?
He can, but that's it doesn't usually happen. Usually someone who sings there is like an opera singer or Beyonce or somebody serenading on a nice event for inauguration. Anything doesn't just go at the White House.
We can do a little ballerina tap dance, something for the girls. I don't know, something for. I've never watched, I don't think, a single second of UFC. I'm not saying this as a fan of it or someone who's even particularly well informed about it. I just think it's perfect.
I have a friend that fights well in UFC, Muhammad Usman. He's a good friend. I actually just still don't want to see the fight happen there, and I respect his career and his craft. And I'm not saying this in a way that's trying to be judgmental or condescending. I'm saying it in a way that there's so many venues
throughout what an opportunity. Well,
I feel like it can happen anywhere else. It doesn't need to happen at the White House. Too much stuff is going on. Why is this a prime thing?
It's kind of like the line from Dr. Strangelove where they say, "Gentlemen, no fighting in the war room." The White House is a
I don't want to see somebody whooping somebody in the middle of the White House. I would like to see, some beautiful flowers not get bulldozed over and completely change the way that this. I would like to see Obama's painting not get moved into the stairwell. These are all things that President Trump has done in recent days.
Horrible painting.
He moved into a stairwell. He's breaking decorum. So I just don't like how Trump just breaks all decorum.
I'm surprised Obama didn't put that painting in the stairwell.
No, he just hates Obama. And then you wonder why Joy Behar goes on such a rampage, because out of all the presidents, you move Obama's to the stairwell. He's just a little bit hating on him.
I saw them talking.
They
seem to get along perfectly well when they talk.
Yeah, okay. They're not like you and I, Robbie. I'm sorry to break the news. I don't think they're really friends in real life.
Your poster, your painting, Lindsay. But I
should put a painting right here.
I wanted a good one. I want a good one of you.
I like that painting just fine of Obama. I'm not going to lie.
The one of him slipping back into the grass. I don't like it. I don't like it. Something about it I don't like. That does it for us today on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Bye-bye.